In the previous video, I introduced to you many terms like true positives, false positives, and others. To make things easier, sometimes it helps to depict all these values pictorially. This is one way of representing these values, wherein you put the true positives here, then false negatives, true negatives, and then the false positives accordingly. The complete elements, the entire set, will represent the total number of emails in your dataset, which is nothing but 10. And this half, the left half, the sum of true positives and false negatives, will give you the total number of spam emails, which is nothing but these emails. And the number of good emails, that is the count of 5, can be seen in the second half, that is nothing but the sum of true negatives and false positives. Once you have the calculations for true negatives, true positives, and other figures, then you can just simply jot them down onto this image. Now, to calculate other values, what do? Let's say you are interested in calculating the precision, then you just take this value into the numerator, true positives, and the sum of these two values in the denominator, which will give you the precision. And for recall, you take true positive into the numerator, and the sum of these two values will be in the denominator, which will give you the recall. There are other terms that you should be aware of. First is, recall is also called as sensitivity, and sometimes it's also called as true positive rate. Why? Because you are taking the ratio of true positives to the sum of these two values. So it's also called as true positive rate. And diametrically opposite, we have something called false positive rate, which is nothing but the ratio of false positives to the sum of these two values, which will give you the false positive rate. And another figure that is useful for analyzing the model is called specificity. It is used along with sensitivity to see how the model is performing, which can be obtained by ratio of these two figures. That is, the true negative will be in the numerator and the sum of these two values will come to the denominator. So just to recall, for calculating the precision, you are taking these two values into consideration with this in the numerator. For recall, you are taking these two values into consideration with TP in the numerator. And false positive rate, you have this in the numerator with the sum of these two values in the denominator. And for sensitivity, you have the opposite thing, that is true negatives in the numerator with the sum of these two figures in the denominator. Now, if you observe the figures for specificity and false positive rate, you can see that they only take the number of good emails into consideration for all their calculations. They don't look at this part, the number of spam email part. And what recall does is, again, as we have seen, it only takes the number of spam emails into consideration for all its calculations. Finally, if you are wondering why we need specificity and false positive rate, we will discuss more about this in one of the future videos.